Welcome to the Dutch Golden Age of the 17th century. Today, we use historical facts to restore the true picture of the Tulip Mania. It all began in the Ottoman Empire. Tulips originated in Central Asia and were introduced to Europe in the mid-16th century, becoming rare and precious items. Around 1554, an ambassador brought tulips back to Europe, and they quickly became popular in noble gardens. In 1593, Clusius brought the bulbs to Leiden in the Netherlands, where tulips began to take root and sprout. At first, only the upper class regarded tulips as a status symbol. Their unique colors were caused by the broken effect from a virus. Bulbs reproduce faster than seeds, but still require several years of cultivation. This scarcity laid the foundation for their value. By the early 1630s, tulips had entered the daily life of the wealthy class and become a fashion. Starting in 1633, trading shifted from physical bulbs to futures contracts. People began speculating on future bulb prices. The wind trade emerged. Informal futures contracts were signed in taverns, with only a small down payment required. Leverage greatly amplified speculation. The mania accelerated from 1634, reached its peak in the winter of 1636 to 1637, and suddenly collapsed in February 1637. Tulips were already prized flowers in the Ottoman Empire and quickly gained popularity after being introduced to Europe. Legend has it that bulbs were once stolen, which stimulated enthusiasm for cultivation in the Netherlands. At that time, the Netherlands was the trade center of Europe, and accumulated wealth provided fertile ground for speculation. Broken tulips, such as the red and white Semper Augustus, were the most sought after due to their unique patterns. Early extreme cases appeared. One house was exchanged for 3 bulbs, showing that values had begun to inflate. The cultivation cycle was long, 7 to 12 years from seed, but bulb trading allowed speculators to trade without waiting for the flowers to bloom. The imbalance between supply and demand intensified. Prices of rare varieties rose steadily, attracting more speculators. Futures contracts became popular. People bought and sold bulbs for future delivery rather than physical bulbs at the time. The leverage effect became apparent. With only a small margin, one could control high-value contracts. Semper Augustus was the most famous variety. It is recorded that in 1636 its contract price reached several thousand Dutch guilders. At its peak, the price of rare bulbs was equivalent to a canal mansion in Amsterdam or many years of income. Speculation expanded from professional gardeners to circles of wealthy merchants. Moral criticism already existed at the time, but the mania continued. The government initially did not intervene, viewing it as a commercial activity. The mania entered its second stage. More people joined and prices accelerated upward. Rumors and expectations drove prices. Everyone believed someone would pay an even higher price. Contracts could change hands multiple times in a single day, and speculation completely detached from the actual value of the flowers. Auctions became hotspots and prices doubled in a very short time. The Dutch economy was strong, with increased idle money, providing a macro environment for the bubble. Although it was not nationwide, some middle and lower classes were also affected, but it mainly remained among the wealthy. In 1636, even ordinary varieties rose from low prices to dozens of times higher. Many participants came from artistic and gardening circles. Tulips also inspired artistic creations. The margin was only about 2.5%, greatly amplifying both risk and returns. Herd mentality dominated, fear of missing out on the opportunity to get rich. Prices rose exponentially in the final few months. Credit expansion further fueled the bubble. The mania became a social topic. It is recorded that peak quotes reached over 10,000 guilders. The wind trade was informal and unregulated. The impact penetrated families, but to a limited extent. Speculation entered the third stage, with expectations completely detached from reality. Classic bubble characteristics: irrational exuberance. Actual planting was limited, but trading far exceeded supply. Everyone expected a greater fool to take over. Although there was no formal stock exchange, the atmosphere was similar. Striped varieties commanded the highest premium. Risk gradually accumulated. Large numbers of novices flooded in. Flowers became symbols of speculation. Trading volume surged. There were already self-mocking voices at the time. Optimism permeated everywhere. It was equivalent to several years of a craftsman's wages. The mania continued day and night. Even professionals participated. The foundation was fragile. The most vulnerable moment of the bubble. The legendary highest quote appeared. Value had become completely virtualized. The overall economy remained strong. The trigger for the collapse. A routine auction had no bidders, and confidence collapsed instantly. Within a few weeks, prices fell more than 90%. Buyers defaulted and refused to pay the high prices. Sellers could not fulfill contracts, and the market froze. Panic selling began. Bulbs once worth thousands of guilders dropped to just a few percent of their value. Many people were simultaneously creditors and debtors. The government intervened and declared the transactions to be gambling in nature. It was resolved quickly to avoid large-scale lawsuits. Actual bankruptcy cases were limited and mainly affected small groups. Moral criticism rose and myths began to spread. There is no evidence that the national economy collapsed. Bulb trading returned to normal, with low-price transactions. Lesson: speculation carries enormous risks. The Dutch Golden Age did not end because of this event. Later myths exaggerated it. The idea of nationwide mania and economic depression is largely fictional. Real history is based on archives, not satirical literature. Modern research shows the impact was limited and mainly affected wealthy circles. There is no evidence of mass suicides or nationwide bankruptcies. The government decided to end the chaos. The flowers themselves were innocent and continued to play an important role in Dutch culture. The bubble burst due to a break in confidence, not external events. The Dutch economy quickly adapted. The event inspired more artistic creations. It is often compared to later events such as the South Sea bubble. It is frequently likened to contemporary bubbles, but history must be approached with caution. Tulips remain a symbol of the Netherlands, and the mania has become a historical footnote. Psychological factors: greed and fear of missing out. Causes of the bubble: scarcity plus leverage plus optimistic expectations. The actual consequences were far smaller than the myth. Tulip Mania is one of the earliest recorded speculative bubbles in history. Reminder: asset prices should be based on intrinsic value, not expectations. Only by basing ourselves on facts rather than legends can we learn the real lessons. Despite the bubble, the Netherlands remained a trading powerhouse. The beauty of flowers endures forever, and the mania is a lesson in human nature. It applies to market manias in any era. Modern historians have corrected the exaggerated narratives. The key is to distinguish between investment and gambling. History tells us that bubbles will recur, but rationality never goes out of style. Thank you for watching. Only by understanding history can we better face the future.